without active involvement of humanity in the usage of library. A library is a compulsory requirement for what you want to achieve. Right now, each and every part of the world, every human being is concerned with the environment. We need libraries that inspire human consciousness towards ecological democracy. One of the basic institutions we can use is a library. Then what you can achieve is geospatial consciousness. Let's move forward quickly. That is the methodology. The methodology is very simple. We used textual analysis or scriptural analysis. It has previously been used as well. It was used by Karl Marx to explain capitalism and to predict capitalism. It was also used by Umberto Eco to explain cryptocracy. Move forward quickly, my time is over. Those are our final and preliminary findings. African cultural and literature scholars are not actively involved in geospatial literature, geospatial consciousness, as per the evidence established at the Regional Center for Mapping and Resource Development. Because none of them is talked there, none of them is established there. You get the books there talking about the winter and the summer and the autumn. You wonder, is it a bread or a cake or a tea without sugar? What is winter, if you can define it for me? I just want to pick one common person there. What is an autumn? So you cannot explain African climatic challenges by using words like autumn, winter, summer. Those are not environmental cultures of Africa. Lastly, last page, let's think like that. Let's entice literature. Let's entice libraries for the purpose of producing literature which protect the earth. There is a word in red there, saiporecha, saiporecha. The word saiporecha was neologized, was introduced by Ngugi wa Thiong'o, meaning a book you read on a phone, a text you read on the internet, a text you read on the laptop. Saiporecha. Literature is printed in terms of paper, but Saiporecha is a book on WhatsApp page, a book on Instagram. You can be reading geospatial literature on your WhatsApp. I encourage you. I don't want to go more because I have more late. May God bless you, and thank you for coming, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Alexander. Geospatial themes in art. I hope you've noted your questions down. You will take them after the upcoming two presentations. A little bit intense, but allowed them more time because I really have two more presentations. I think we shall have enough time to undertake them. So the next presenter will be Maxford Malumbwa, and he will be presenting on mapping of fish cage culture, suitable science in Malawi. Welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this presentation. I'll be presenting on the topic shown on the slide. As it is rightly said, I'm coming from Malawi. Next slide. The background of the presentation that I'm making, or I'll make, is that in Malawi we have fish that we are relying on as an important animal protein source. It has been as an important animal source for years now. Most of the locals cannot afford to buy the other animal protein like chicken, beef, goat, but most of them rely on small species of fish. So with that regard, we have relied on capture fisheries for quite so long, but now the landings or the catches from the capture fisheries are now going down. And this has been the concern of the government and of course the stakeholders. And this has prompted the government to seek supplement ways on how we can continue having the supply of fish on the market. And one of the ways was to venture into aquaculture or fish farming. So at first, we looked at fish farming as pond-based aquaculture systems, which climate change has also impacted us negatively, as most of the ponds that we were relying on are now becoming annual, because most of them were relying on diversions of water from rivers, and these rivers are no longer having water throughout the year. So we are having a number of ponds that are drying up, and that has also affected the fish production. And due to that, we have thought of bringing in the climate-smart aquaculture systems, in this case, the cage culture system. Of course, there are a number of them, but the one that I will talk about is the cage culture system. But now, it is easy to start a site, a construction site, when it is on the bare ground, because you are able to see. But for cage culture, we have to assess an area in the lake, in this case Lake Malawi, where you have to understand what is the depth, what is the water quality parameters of the area, what are the species in the area, and what are the other conditions in terms of the sociological aspects of the area. So this has prompted us to conduct what we are calling the zoning, cage culture zoning for specific areas. So this presentation will be about what we have done in as far as zoning of cage culture is concerned in one of the areas in Salima district for cage culture. Next slide. From that background, we drew several specific objectives. The first one was to establish the physical and chemical characteristics of the site. And the other one was to determine the species composition and abundance of the site. We would like to understand what was there before the coming of the cages, and of course follow up as to what will be there after 10 years or 20 years when we install the cages. Then thereafter, we also looked at the bathymetry of the area and came up with the bathymetry maps of the area to see exactly where exactly within the site can we position the cages. Then thereafter, we looked at the acceptability of the projects, in this case the cages, because we don't want to have conflicts between the investors and the communities around the potential sites. And lastly, we also provided the recommendations of whether the area is suitable for cage culture or not. Next slide. There are several methods that we employed to achieve each of the specific objectives that I talked about. However, because of time, let me just give you a picture of what was done. We corrected the species from the landings of the fishes around the area to determine the biodiversity and, of course, the species composition of the area. Length and weight measurements of the fish in the particular area were recorded. Length to the nearest millimeter and weight to the nearest gram. We also collected information on depth stations, on the transects that we formed from on the site. I'll show you the transects that we had on the site. And we also conducted water quality analysis by collecting water samples in the same the same transects that we were collecting the depth of the area. We also collected substrates and bephivores by using a graph sampler, and of course we conducted focus group and of course one-on-one interviews with the communities around the sites, proposed sites. Coming to the results, we had the results in the figure 1, showing that the depth of the area ranged from 0 to 21, and the slope of the area was sloping to the center, and the figure 2 is the transect that we made in the area that we were sampling or working on. Next slide. From the bathymetry map that we came up with, we found that there were 2 sites that were good or appropriate for cage culture, and these we named them as Area A and Area B. And for Area A, the surface area was 352 hectares, and the site B, the surface area was 265 hectares. The site that we recommended for cage culture was site A. The reason being that it was away from the tributary that we were having in the proposed site, because that tributary was also bringing in siltation and reducing the depth of the area around the Area B. So we thought the investor might have some challenges in setting up cages in that area. But however, at the point of the study, the 2 sites were eligible for cage culture. The water quality parameters in table 1 were within within the favorable conditions for fish survival, and we also concluded that the area could also accommodate fish in cages, because the fish are already living in the conditions that are appropriate for survival. The next slide. In terms of the fish composition of the area, we observed that there were 3 species that were so eminent in the area. One of it being the Yunglosarpis sardella. It's a very small species, which is at the moment contributing about 60% of annual landings of our country. And of course, we have also Holochromis chiranus and Holochromis kalongai. Now, looking at our policy, our Lake Malawi does not, have a lot of species in one place, and it is the only lake in the world that has over 700 species in one area. And due to that, there are several treaties that were signed with the World Heritage Center. We have Lake Malawi National Park in the same lake, and due to that, we do not allow culture of exotic species. So this study, we were happy to see that in the area, the species of targets for these cages, which is Holochromis chiranus and Holochromis kalongai, were already living in the area, and they were already successful in the area. Therefore, it would be easier, or it would be possible to capture them also in cages. The communities, over 90% of the communities also recommended for the project, or the coming in of the cages, with different expectations of improving their livelihood in terms of employment, in terms of food, among others. Next slide. Looking at conclusion, we looked at several issues, but in conclusion, we found that the area was deep enough for cage culture, and we also noted that the depth, the distance between, from the shore to the sites, were within range. It was manageable to operate the cages or conduct husbandry practice to the cages at that particular distance. The water quality parameters were within the recommended range for the survival of fish, and we also noted that the water was productive. Of course, not that productive as it is expected of a large lake, which has a lot of recirculation. But we recommended for several aspects that would assist in that. One of them, next slide. One of them being that they should allow use of floating feed so that we do not encourage feed wastage, which will result into deterioration of water quality parameters. And the other recommendations that were made were that the water quality parameters should be conducted, should be monitored throughout the production site of the cages, so that we continue monitoring what the cages are impacting to the environment, and make sure that we deal with the challenges that come thereof. And lastly, the policymakers should also ensure that the investors are held accountable in ensuring that they are covering or dealing with the challenges that are there in ensuring that the environment is kept as it was within the recommended range of water quality parameters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maxford. So from land cover to polyphonic art to eating fish, now we are going to biodiversity reporting by Dunstan. Let's now get the statistics right, I think so.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's great to see you all. I appreciate you staying awake and attentive. It's been a full day. I'll be talking a little bit today about biodiversity reporting. And I'd like to start with introducing the lead author for this paper. And so Mike Gill is actually the lead for this initiative. He's with an organization called NatureServe. NatureServe was originally part of the Nature Conservancy, and then many years ago, they actually broke out to just focus on biodiversity analytics and endangered species information. So in the United States, all of the sensitive data around species in each state is managed under a natural heritage program. It's obviously very sensitive and secure information, but the national data set for the whole country is compiled by NatureServe. So they actually have this trusted role with the federal government to take this sensitive data from each state. They have all of those partnerships and relationships, and then they provide that open data set. Not open, they provide that data set for regulation and policy at the national level. They also work around the world, helping to implement similar systems in many different programs. So Mike is the director of Biodiversity Indicators Program. He's an honorary fellow of the UN Environment WCMC World Conservation Monitoring Center, and the former chair of the Group on Earth Observation's Biodiversity Observation Network. So forgive me because I will be reading a little bit today, because again, I'm presenting on Mike's behalf. So there is a major initiative around the world that's emerging to better track biodiversity and species data. That's part of the Community of Practice and the Global Biodiversity Framework. That was intended to be released in 2020. Things got delayed through COVID. And so this December, those new indicators for reporting how each country will be reporting on the status of the conservation, wildlife, biodiversity, the health of the environment, that will all be finalized as far as how we'll manage and measure that for the next 10 years, let's say, 8 years, depending on how they adjust for this delay. So countries are parties to a number of biodiversity-related multilateral agreements, but that means there's now a new reporting challenge, a new burden of tracking all of these indicators. So the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, likely many of you are aware of, have 169 targets. And so just the effort to compile and do that reporting is not trivial. So the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, which we again will see out released in December, and Mike has been part of the committees that are helping understand and advise on what those indicators will be. That's a new opportunity, and it's also a challenge. Now, we are, as you've heard throughout this conference, we are in the midst of a big data revolution. There's more and more satellites, there's more and more sensors. There's reporting that 90% of all information ever generated was created in the past 2 years. So how do we make sense of it? How do we translate this incredible amount of data to actionable decision-making around conservation? We know the need is there. During the most recent Global Science for Biodiversity Forum, we conducted a survey with the participating countries, and over 92% said they currently lack that ability to do that reporting. So our concept and our collaboration with NatureServe and the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data is to take existing technology, established technology, and to implement toolkits that we can quickly make available and deploy in multiple countries. We'll start that with a pilot level initiative, but it's not a small pilot. It's actually across 6 different African countries. But the goal here is to have these national toolkits that are structured around well-defined workflows, including obviously mapping the data, doing analysis, and reporting on the indicators out through dashboards. And then we'll back that up with training and technical documentation and refining that pattern of use so that we can move it from place to place, from country to country around the world. So clearly, our work has been to define those information management needs, come up with the repeatable toolkit, and then to advance the deployment of those tools in a way that's effective and scalable. A little bit hard to read, I apologize. Here's an example of how this approach is being applied at the national scale. We'll see the workflow for the production of multiple indicators that speak to ecosystem extent, connectivity, and integrity, as well as guiding priorities for protection and restoration based on the Red List of Ecosystems methodology. That was pioneered in South Africa. South Africa is one of our partners in this National Toolkit initiative, and the approach has been applied in a number of other African countries, including Malawi, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Uganda. So this approach takes a small set of core indicators, protected areas, land cover, time series data, land use, and then that derives ecological condition and land and vegetation classification to produce a biodiversity assessment level. And that then feeds the ability to report out on multiple indicators. So in short, we're trying to go from having a bunch of different tools that you could compile and put together to accomplish something similar into a more of an organized toolkit, right? The tools are well defined, the data, once you have the data coming in, whether that is national data, whether that is data from Esri's Living Atlas, many different sources, you're hearing about many different organized data providers through the course of this event, Digital Earth Africa, Biopama, many others, that you can then bring that data forward in a way that's integrated to produce this reporting capability for all of these emerging indicators. So what this looks like in practice, this is a spatial biodiversity assessment that the South African National Biodiversity Institute led in partnership with NatureServe and Ugandan experts to guide a strategic, prioritized conservation and restoration effort in Uganda to reach various targets, including a 2025 forest cover target. So the approach is simple. It can be produced with either global or national data, and it produces scalable outputs that align not only with the global targets, but also national development policies. Let's see, here's the toolkit will contain, again, customized dashboards like the ones you're seeing here. These are some related biodiversity monitoring dashboards that NatureServe has developed for other regions, including the Arctic. Let's see, this, so again, sort of what's in the toolkits. We're talking about data, tools for analytics, The dashboards themselves, so those don't need to be crafted and designed through custom software efforts, but rather designed through custom software development, but rather configured. That's a big part of Esri's technology today, is rather than starting with building blocks and code and building an application, you start with an application and you change it slightly. It makes things much more efficient. Tools, training, engagement with the country partners, and sort of reinforcing this pattern and building capacity around deploying it. The technical partners include Esri, the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data that I mentioned. The overall initiative involves 8 countries, 6 in Africa, Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, Rwanda, Namibia, and Tanzania, including Zanzibar. And the goal is to establish these, work with these partners in the first phase, and in the second phase, further refine and deploy the availability of these tools in a much larger community. So I thank you, I appreciate your attention, and would love to take any questions as we get to the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Desden. Just to confirm, do you still have Walter around? No, so I think we have those 4 presentations. Walter, you're here? Okay, so we'll get the presenter from Walter. think as Walter fixes his presentation, you can take the questions on the first 4 presentations as we wait for him to fix his presentation. Let's begin with the first presentation by Hussein, which was about protected areas. Anyone with a reaction on that? That Hussein can be able to note it down and respond. So we have 1. Any other? Okay, proceed.
Thank you very much. And the presenter also, thank you very much. My question is on the.
Make it closer.
My question is on the model that was used for prediction of the year 2020. I just wanted to find out, probably from the results they had, what parameters informed this.
The parameters for modeling the land cover for 2050.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Hussein, are you around? Okay. Any other question for him so that he is able to combine the responses? Oh, you've forgotten the presentation? How would you to forget so fast? In psychology, when you forget so fast, you're given a very funny name. I'll not mention it here. You know it? Any psychologists around? People who forget so fast, they are called what? Please respond.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Marceline, for the question about the prediction, which is very important. The model that was used was the Excel sheet. Actually, we used the pivot table to come up with the answer for the prediction. And remember, for you to come up with the prediction, you have to start with the initial year. And we had a series of land cover maps and statistics right from 1990, an interval of 10 years up to 2019. So we could subtract the initial year from the current year and be able to determine the difference between the years. Actually, you can subtract from 2010, from 2019, you subtract 2019 for you to know each year what is changing and how much. Then through the pivot table in Excel sheet, you are able to use the R-square to do the prediction. So that was the methodology.
But the variables, so basically were they just land use or anything else? But that I think is a question. What went into the R model, whatever you're calling it?
Okay. So some other indicators, or we had to integrate with other indicators such as rainfall, which is an indicator. We had to see the series from 1990. How has it been raining for that particular study area? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's go to the polyphonic arts and geospatial literature. Any reaction from Mr. Alexander Opicho? You have 1 here. Any other hand for him? Polyphonic arts, transforming science into theater. Let's go. Okay.
Allow me to ask from the previous presentations.
Sure.
Yes. On the study area, I got interested because of the stakeholders, the ones who are involved, and I saw KWS and some other institutions, and I don't know what was the input of KFS on that. The input of KFS and the end product, who's benefiting from this product currently?
Susan?
Thank you for that question. It is evident that you can't separate forest and wildlife. They go hand to hand. But what KFS gave to us Actually, the boundary we got from Kenya Wildlife Service, that is some of the inputs that we got from Kenya Wildlife Service. But for the output, that is the results, we shared across these government institutions, including Kenya Forest Service. So that's what we did. Thank you.
Okay. Any question for Alexander before I move to caging, fish cages? You guys don't like drama, and you watch movies. All right, good. So, any question on the caging of fish in Malawi and the biodiversity systems within Lake Malawi? You said there are over 700 species of fish in that particular lake. So fish caging is actually the new culture of fish harvesting in most marine states, including Kenya. We also do caging in Lake Victoria and places like that. So it's actually the modern way of fish harvesting. Any reaction for him? Why you died like this? Do you need some whiskey? Or some water? The weather is too cold, isn't it? And the whiskey is coming at around 6, but if you're done like this, how will you? At 6, there will be something bitter for the tongue. At 6 p.m. today, don't leave. Reaction for the fish caging? Are you with me? Are you sure you're here? Why are you quiet like that? Okay, let's go to Dasidin. Anything on biodiversity monitoring? You want to know anything about diversity monitoring? We have one there. Anyone else? Okay.
Hello. My question goes to biodiversity monitoring. I didn't capture the presentation clearly, especially on a political commitment to biodiversity data, both production, sharing, and production and protection. Now, which level of government? Is it intergovernmental level, global governmental level, or which specific government? Can a regional governmental commitment achieve the global results for biodiversity data production, protection, and circulation? That was the question to my brother Godson. Just one question like that, but his presentation was very brilliant. I've met in this year.
Right.
Before you respond, Godson, there is a younger man here who does not want to get a microphone and ask me a question, but he has whispered in my ear that now, can I get the document for your presentation? The answer is yes. You go to the Office of Regional Center for Mapping and Resource Development, which is organizing this conference. Find the administration. You will be given respective documents and you do your media reporting. But welcome very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Picha. Daslin.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your question. So the biodiversity indicator framework that's coming in December is a nation-to-nation UN initiative. So the UN member states, so every country that's part of the UN system, which is almost every country, has been part of this nation-to-nation negotiation of scientists to come up with these national reporting standards. So in the case of this project, it's very much a nation-to-nation, a national level endeavor. Now that's not to say that nature and biodiversity aren't important everywhere, even at the village level. And so a separate project that I wasn't speaking to today is some work that we've done with the Jane Goodall Institute, and they're working in Tanzania and Uganda around what they call Takare, and it's a community-based conservation approach where they go in and they listen to the community. What are the challenges? Maybe it's education, maybe it's health, maybe it's need for microfinance, and they develop focused programs with the community to resolve those issues, and then they do conservation. They talk about land use planning around the village. Where does the water come from? Where is the trees? And I really appreciated your presentation. One of the key aspects of Takare is they have performances and art where they have like posters, for example, where the area is completely deforested and there's barely any water in the stream and people are hungry. And there's another scenario where nature is lush and the food is productive, you know, the farms are productive and people feel, you know, look happier, and they use art to convey the importance of these, you know, concepts while they do Takare. So Esri Press has just published a book that the Jane Goodall team wrote, and we're very proud of it because it is not sort of a top-down, this is how you work with communities. It's actually the voices of the people that did the work. It's the Tanzanians, Ugandans, the folks in DRC that developed that approach. So yeah, thank you for the question. You know, one final thing I would add is that you can build a beautiful national dashboard of information, but that information comes from the entire system. And so it's really important to invest in capacity and systems in regional governments, in counties, right, rolling up so that you're rolling up something credible. And there's a lot of work to do in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Another reaction? Okay, quickly. Yeah, then I'll come back to you.
Okay, my question goes to Mr. Opicho because
Yeah, sure.
I heard him complaining that nobody asked him a question, so I have two for you. You said in your analysis of African literature, you were trying to look at the themes of geospatial themes actually. So I am interested to know, in your analysis, did you find that the current African literature, does it have that aspect of communicating about space, biodiversity, environment, and our ecology, and or it doesn't have anything to do with geospatial themes? Two, do you think before GIS technology and before talking of geospatial as a term, did our African literature have that aspect of talking about our cosmology in terms of in their vocabulary, in their literature, in their songs, and other things? In that respect, I wanted also to know, because you said I assume you're coming from Uganda, isn't it? So you must have read Chindu by Jennifer Makumbi, a novel which details generation across 200 years, you know that? And in it talks about Kampala before Europeans came, when they came, and after they left. And its sense of gives us an imagery of what was there before when they arrived and when they left. It's like a satellite image, how the city looked like, the environment, when they arrived and when they left. So do you also think such a novel can be said to have an idea of geospatial themes? And then in Kenya, we have M.P. Ole Kulet. He had a novel called Vanishing Hearts, which talks about what happens when the environment is destroyed, the climatic changes, unpredictable rains, droughts, famine, and such kind of things. So I know I have said many things. I said it because I also have interest in literature, and I was wondering, you were complaining nobody asked you a question, so I decided to give you that service, sir. Thank you.
Let's a picture, make it brief, please, and press us to the point, because you have another presentation pending.
Thank you very much. I will be as brief as required. Let me know the name of my friend who has asked the question. Your name was? Justus Kemboy. Oh, thank you, Bwana Kemboy. You had 4 questions. One of them was whether I come from Uganda or not. That was the most difficult question. To be sure, I don't have an answer. Sincerely, I promise I don't have an answer. But I'm aware of Jennifer Nasumbuka Magumbi, the author of Chindu and the Early Woman. There are several geospatial themes in the works of Jennifer Nasumbuka Magumbi. Her work is Kintu. When you pronounce it as by Swahili accent, you say Kintu. but K in Luganda is Chi. You say Chintu. So Chintu, the Kapaka Saga. We have a lot of geospatial stories in Chundi's narrative. The other book, The Early Woman, he talks of the ant hills, the rain, the whales drying, the grains disappearing, the herbs not being there, their husband beating their wife because she didn't collect firewood in time. Those are geospatial issues, okay? Now, what I'm saying is we have a lot of African literatures discussing geospatial issues, but the problem is where are they in the geospatial library institutions? That was the pregnant issue here. Again, Henry Ole Goulet, all of his works from the Blossoms of the Savannah, the Vanishing Hearts, and many other works he did. He wrote around 11 works, which are all geospatial in context. You understand, Henry Ole Goulet is the only African literary scholar and practitioner who came up with a brand of literature called Savannah literature. So Savannah is a geospatial word. Ultimately, I agree that Henry Ole Goulet is a geospatial author. This is my question. Do you find him in your library? If you can go and look around, where you work and where I work, I'm sure we don't have Henry Ole Goulet on the shelf. The Regional Center Library is a geospatial library. So it has technical, moral, professional, and a technical application to have those type of stuff on the fiction, art, drama, and polyphonic section of the library. That was your last question. Your first question was, is there geospatial literature in Africa? We've already said yes. I don't need to repeat. Even Binyavanga Wainaina was also a geospatial author. Ngugi in The Grain of Wheat, he talked about land, rain, tilling, failure of productivity of the earth. That was geospatial connotations, okay? David Mailu in The Broken Drum, he had like over 500 pages talking about the climate. No one gives him attention. That is geospatial literature. We don't have him in our shelves. So I was not given, I didn't have time to go up to the conclusions because of time economy. I want to agree that there are geospatial African writers who describe African climate in terms of Africanness, not in terms of autumn, winter, spring, and other stuff, but in terms of African experience of climate change. The problem is institutional support and institutional promotion of geospatial African literature is the missing link in African geospatial civilization. You came up with a new word, cosmology and cosmogony. They have the same meaning. The origin of the earth and the experience of the earth in its history, cosmogony and cosmology. We have a lot of those theories, a lot of those themes in the African literature. You remember my inspiring influence. My benchmark was Professor Sheikh Anta Diop, the one I cited in my abstract and my introduction. He is an African. He was born in Senegal. He worked in the US for some few years, but came back to work at Senegal. He established the Sheikh Anta Diop University in Senegal. It is a very strong university to the level of University of Nairobi, Dar es Salaam, and Makerere. Now, he was not writing GIA's information. His focus was on evolution of human beings, but using geospatial approach to explain human evolution. You've heard about Egyptology. Egyptology is a concept that all human beings came from Egypt. Now, Sheikh Anta Diop wanted to establish and confirm and prove this theory by using the approach of geospatial data analysis. He confirmed that it has been accepted if you give me time to come out. All human beings have an evidence of coming from Africa.
Kindly summarize.
They came from Egypt. So Egyptology is the proper explanation of African cosmogony and African cosmology. So yes, there is a geospatial literature in Africa, but institutional support of geospatial literature is lacking. I don't know if I come from Uganda. I'm not aware. Thank you.
Okay. Good. So last one here, then we have presentation for Walter.
I think I had raised
Okay,
my hand.
okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
I wanted to ask something on biodiversity.
Mhm.
The linkage between biodiversity and infrastructure when it comes to also conservation, because in most developing countries there is a lot of infrastructure coming up, and we have data on biodiversity. And the reason I asked about the link is because most of these institutions, infrastructural institutions, they might not refer to the institutions dealing with biodiversity. By the time we realize the biodiversity is already destroyed. So that's why I wanted to clarification whether we have data to show our how rich biodiversity is and where it is found and how it can be avoided, and especially to developing countries who are coming up with different infrastructure on a daily basis. A case study is in Kenya. A lot is happening, more roads are being opened. How are we to conserve this biodiversity using GIS? I know we've used GIS to establish where these areas are, but is this information useful to this or available to the institutions dealing with infrastructure?
Thank you. Good enough. Does it end quickly on that? Or are you also on biodiversity? Okay, wait, hold on so that you combine the two. Here. These are the last questions, and then we'll have Walter making his presentation.
Thank you very much. My question, David, is with regard to the partnering counties or the counties that are involved in this whole project. I wanted to find out how is the implementation plan or model? Is it the same? And I'm asking this with the specification to Kenya. The big data is still a quite new but very dynamic thing currently, and very vital because we all know that data is very important, especially in policy formulation and by extension implementation. So I wanted to know the models if they are the same, considering that in Kenya we have devolved governments, and in line with that also, what are the plans on capacity building and especially to the devolved government units in our country? Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for both questions. Right now, for this pilot project we're talking about, it is a national level indicator reporting toolkit. So the project itself will then lead to sub-national engagement with the counties, with the contributing agencies. So that will come later once the project is underway. I do know, so to both questions, there is national level reporting. There's also a lot of need for improvement. So I think the last national assessment that I'm familiar with in Kenya, which I didn't work on, but I've heard of, required a nonprofit to go from county to county, nonprofit to nonprofit, and unlock data and then compile it into some shapefiles, right? So it's not an efficient way. There isn't a live current view of biodiversity in Kenya or most other countries. That's where we need to get to. So all of the tools and technologies that you're learning about here, county level initiatives to do good conservation planning at the county level, rolling up to the opportunity to do national level conservation planning. There is another initiative that's taking hold around the world, which is called 30 by 30. Over 90 countries have committed to 30 by 30, and that is conserving 30% of land and water in each of these countries by the year 2030. So how do you do that? Where are the best places? How do you continue to grow with appropriate infrastructure and not destroy the environment where it's not absolutely necessary? Those require organization of geospatial data. and trust in that data, and tools for conservation planning. So that's the challenge ahead. I don't want to imply that we have all of the answers. I think we know a lot about the technology and the practices that can help get us there, but a lot of this work I'm describing is sort of what needs to come next. Thank you.
All right, thank you, President. Thank you. We'll now allow Walter to make his presentation on Nairobi. Nairobi is one of the few cities with a national park, a forest, and now it has a grazing area. The land cover land is changed that Walter will want to show us. Welcome, Walter.
So, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm Walter, and I'll be brief to the point. I'll be presenting a topic on changing land use and land cover in the areas that are being utilized by pastoralists in the city of Nairobi. So I've been doing this work. It's part of the work we have been working on pastoralists, and it's just a small portion which we have worked on, and we feel like it's worth presenting with Oliver from the University of Nairobi. So pastoralists, we know they are very important part of the economy, and in Kenya they are really facing a myriad of challenges, key of them being changing land use and land cover. And when we come to Nairobi, you realize that Nairobi City is currently one of the cities in Africa which are experiencing rapid urbanization, changing land use, and even population. The industries are expanding and to the neighboring areas, and you realize that people are settling from different backgrounds, and the issues that are here really have been addressed. And contrary to the expectation that pastoralists will be moving away from the city, in the work we have been doing, we realize that pastoralists are even moving more closer to the city due to various reasons. And among the findings, which might not be under this one, is because of reduction in grazing land, where they have been settling due to changes in land cover and land tenures. They're also moving in search of various opportunities. Among them, you realize they are seeking employment alongside following their herds. So the work of this, the aim of this work was to build on the previous work by quantifying the land use and land cover changes in the grazing areas within the city, and bring up intervention efforts that will address the issues that are revolving around pastoralism. Modern science and technology has been criticized for overlooking the role played by local communities, among them the pastoralists, to involve in sustainable resource management. And for this reason, scientists came up with the participatory GIS, which I call the PGIS, whereby they are being involved to bring out the change detection of what they have been experiencing for the specific resources they use. In our case, and this is the methodology, we hope you can see. If you can't, we involve pastoralists to sketch or to draw mental resource maps, whereby in these maps, they were able to give us the key resources they are using in Nairobi and how these resources have been changing. And from my study, I realized that pastoralists have been staying in the city since early 1990s. So for this case, we went ahead to check how this change has been taking place in the span of 10 years. We did the study in 2020, so 2020, 2010, and the year 2000. So the span of 10 years was sufficient enough to give the change detection. And the 3 mental resource maps were drawn from 4 various locations where pastors have settled, which we call them the manyatas. Even here in Kasarani down here, we have a very big manyata. And these maps were taken image, and that image was digitized, georeferenced using ArcGIS version 10.8, and used to provide our findings. So we realized that the grazing area, the bare land area increased at the alpha level of 0.05, and the overall grassland and forest area also reduced at that same alpha level between 2020 and 2000, the 20-year period of study. There was rapid expansion of real estates, industries, factories, settlement areas. Also, we had infrastructure blocking the grazing routes, and even the areas these pastoralists have grazing. For your information, our main international airport, there are pastoralists there. So when you be leaving Bikin, you will be able to see them. They are always grazing there. And there is a very big boma consisting of 86 households. So the question is, should we assume them, or should we look into the efforts to know what is bringing them towards the city and address that? Next slide, please. This was one of the outputs, and it is in Kasarani sub-county. It's called Oloropil Manyata. So the right side is the recent map drawn for 2020. Then we have the 2010. Then we have the year 2000. You can see how resources are changing. Those dotted lines, they are settling areas where these pastoralists are settling. So you realize that there are so many compared to in the year 2000. So they have been increasing. You can even see the roads, and things are changing. Things are changing. They are being chased away from the city, yet when you walk with them, you realize that they believe every green is theirs. From our conclusion, we realize that rapid land use and land cover changes have taken place in the city, and because of that, pastoralists are facing triple challenges from grazing, movement, and even being able to accommodate themselves within the city. Some of them have resolved to neighboring areas in Kiambu, Machakos, and even some have even invented their way of surviving by buying pastures. So there's the issue of commercialization of fodder, and all this, as we have seen, and even by moving closer to the city, settling there, we say that they are moving towards the policymakers who are living within the city to be able to bring out their cry, which needs to be heard. Yes, please. So we propose various strategies, among them improvement of commercial fodder within the city. This is a very lucrative business area, and we have several people who love livestock meat. So when we bring fodder to them, they'll be able to feed the animals. But the question is, towards the city or not? We also suggest quantification of the national pasture resource base so that we can be able to address and bring out the measures which can address their grazing, so that they either should not come towards the city, but they should be supplied with food so that their livestock with feed, so that they can be able to graze in those areas. We also need to map their grazing patterns, how they have been moving seasonally, and this is a continuation of the work we have been doing. And in the variations of the pastures, we'll be able to address the need to help them overcome their challenges. So this study is having several beneficiaries, and because it's a continuing work, we recommend that the land use planners, the policymakers in the government sector, the livestock departments, including International Livestock Research Institute, KALRO, Ministry of Agriculture. KALRO is Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization, and including RCMRD, who are part of the research institutes, should come up and assist the pastoralists in urban areas to address the challenges they're experiencing. So I expect your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Now we know that the owners of Nairobi are claiming it's back. They have welcomed modernization and now it has chased them away. Any reactions for Walter? If any? I have one. Where is your hand? I see it. Okay, please go.
Pastoralism sustainable, not only in Nairobi, but I think within Kenya. And number two, the reality of things on the ground is there is a whole confusion, there's a whole conflict, all related to pastoralism and grazing and community land. Are there governance structures or other governance levels that are failing in contributing towards these pastoralism related problems? Thanks.
Walter, did you get the questions correctly? Whether it is sustainable and the governance structures, I think the key points there.
Thank you for the reactions. About sustainability of pastoralism in the city, we realize that pastoralists have been increasing, and it is contrary to our expectation. But the problem is they are facing various challenges, even in the places they are coming from, which are not being addressed. So they are finding that the only way is to come to us. So about the sustainability, it's not assured. But about even the places where they have come from, there's a lot of issues: land degradation, overgrazing, generation of pastoralists, and you realize that all those factors are making pastoralism in the entire country to be unsustainable. So about sustainability, it's no longer about urban areas, it's about even the areas we're coming from. About the second question was on government interventions, governance. The issue of governance, the county and national governance, they haven't had a lot of investment in pastoralism, despite it being the major sector, providing over 75% of the national livestock. The government sector has neglected it. And that's why we are bringing this close to the attention of the researchers, the policymakers, that they should look upon them, or else pastoralism is running extinct in the country. Just as you can look at the literature, by the way, the same issue of urbanization, pastoralists moving to urban areas have been reported in Tanzania, and also Ethiopia is facing the same challenge. From the literature, I realized that pastoralism is at the peak of extinction. So governance and everything, it is our role to help pastoralism.
Any other? I have another one there. So you have two, so there and another. And I have the last hand, if any, so that we close the Q&A. So 1, 2. Who's the last one here? There are only 2. Okay. Go.
Thanks for your presentation. The moderator alluded to the fact that Nairobi is quite unique in having a national park, but I didn't see that included in your study. Was there a particular reason for not factoring in the impact of having a large protected area in the city and the relationship of that to how pastoralists engage with open spaces, etc.? Another thing is we just mentioned Tanzania. So in the study did come up that there are some socioeconomic factors like transhumance, etc., which are causing pastoralist communities to be pushed out of the places they live in. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there.
Can we combine then? So we have a hand here and then you finally finish. Let's finish with that. He's closer.
Well, I think in all the presentation that you have seen, that has been presented, we have seen that the guy understands what is required. I was so much touched when you say that the pastoralists are invading the policy makers, which is true, but I want to ask you, according to the study that you have done, is it implementable? Two, is it only Nairobi? Because we have other major cities that pastoralists will invade soon. That's all.
Okay, let's combine it with this that you can have one response.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm Isinya Fatuma from Uganda. My first question was pastors. First, you said you conducted an FGD from part of your results, but the results do not show how the FGD results can help. Right now, we are putting a task on government to give solutions to the pastoralists. You have got the reasons why they are moving to the city. From the FGD's discussion, we expected you to tell us that these were the challenges that made the pastoralism to move to the city. But however, you also should seek solutions from the same FGDs. If they are moving to the city, what can we do to stop them from moving to the city? Because as most policymakers, you make policies from the desk, you don't know what's on the ground. If I'm forced to move to the city, what can they do so that they can remain in the city? Mind you, these pastoral lands were also okay like any other land, but they kept on degrading themselves by themselves. It's not the government that has been degrading the pastoral land. So how can they regenerate their land so that they can continue living on the same land as they used? Not again tasking policymakers to look for avenues of helping the degrader. You come and destroy your vegetation. Then tomorrow you say, we need assistance. Now, where will the assistance come from when I've already destroyed? Because these people were born in these lands. These are their native their lands. So when you conduct an FGD, you ask for a challenge, the problem. Then at the same time, ask them, since time immemorial, your ancestors have been living here. So what can we do to maintain you on the same grounds? Because moving to Nairobi and giving the government task to give solutions to the pastoralists, it's not solving anything. We are reading all of these papers. Then my other question goes to biodiversity. There is a goal of achieving biodiversity by 2040. But time immemorial, like for instance, I come from Uganda. In 1994, we had a vegetation cover of 46%. Right now, we have 1.9 million acres standing. And as I might say, we have less than 1.91 acres. But you are saying by 2024, the biodiversity should have increased. Have you taken up the people who have gone on reducing the biodiversity? Because this is not the first study, this is not the first land use on biodiversity. If you go to literature, there is a lot of biodiversity increase, but you find those are paperworks that have been read by elites. But the people who are degrading, people who are destroying the biodiversity, they actually don't know. I can give an example of Mount Elgon. There's a lot of landslides in Mount Elgon, but you ask them, your great-grandies lived here, and they did not experience the landslides. But why is it now landslides are the order of the day? I can give an example of Marira. I was in Marira. I tried to do a value of Marira, to attach to Marira. There is someone who would come, I cut the tree because God was God gave us to us. So until we come and change the mindset of the people, the custodians of the natural capital, the natural resources, we are going to write papers. People, we are going to read. So and so wrote this about this. So and so wrote about climate change. So and so wrote about pastoralism. But you are not solving. Soon pastoralism will be on the streets of what? Hillington, when they are also struggling. Tell them to give us solutions. From their solutions, we shall begin from there. But we shall not make paper solutions for people to read. I think the conference should change. We should bring in the people occupying the resources so that the people to change the what? The policies. But if you say you are making a policy for me who is living in the AC, and I'm the only one who understands the policy, the person who is in the village, but understanding the policy. So you will say, this is what I know. So thank you very much.
Okay. Walter, try and respond on what you know.
Thank you for...
Yeah, you could see the questions were beyond some of them.
Thank you for the relevant observations. They are really building on what. My learned friend here asked about, I didn't mention Nairobi National Park. Actually, pastoralists who are already around the airport, they are the ones who enter the park. But the park is restricted by Kenya Wildlife Service, KWS. So entering there, they shall enter there during dry seasons. When there is no forage at home, they come throughout the city, which was their dry season grazing reserve. So by entering there, it is illegal. They realize that the only potential is within the city, even along the roadsides. Any green they can find. So it's just a triple problem. And the triple problem is what I've been trying to report, that the solutions might not come from Nairobi itself. We have to look outside. But outside, land is getting degraded. People are looking for land for settlement. There's a lot of land privatization. There's a lot of conversion into other uses, like mechanical agricultural systems. And pastoralists are losing their land. There's nobody who is looking into that. So the issue, we can say that we have to bring the voices, pastoralists on service. Unless they speak by themselves, nobody listens to them. We are representing them here, but they are not here. Again, I realize that they are moving, the pastoralists are moving across the border, even Tanzania. It's no longer a one-way direction, but for the city, that was a special case that was bringing attention to me. And I followed by moving to my learned friend who asked about whether this is going to happen in Nairobi. The answer is no. Actually, go to Laikipia, go to Kisumu, go to Mombasa. There are other areas, most cities in the country here, pastoralists are moving towards urban areas. It's no longer about accessing the social services, but they are also in need of market. The resources are not there at home. They are just intertwined. So as we are doing research, one of my recommendations was we have to establish a database of pasture across the country, and we update it. Let's say during dry season, during this period, we should have a database that should indicate the national pasture resource. This is what was planted, the natural, and at least consolidate it in a way that it can be used to provide more forage for these herders. And that one will actually address their movement to the city. Certainly the city is not the last resort, but they are just bringing even more problems into their life. About the refugee minister, the refugees were used to complement and provide further information deeper on the work that we did. And from that, we have already published one paper. I think most of the other items we can discuss as we move along, because we are around until tomorrow evening. So meet me and I will give you a lot of information about it. The paper is called Factors Influencing Migration and Settlement of Pastoralists in the University of Kenya by is to address these issues. And the way to go is to avoid overseeing other areas. At the same time, we expect that they will not change. Things are changing and we are losing a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. I think if you are really interested in understanding more about the animal resources, there's the Inter-African Bureau of Animal Resources called the AU-IBA, and that's where you get the conference for pastoralists. So we might not bring the Madarse Mardi, but if you're interested in the animal resources, please follow AU-IBA, Inter-African Bureau for Animal Resources. It's an African Union body in charge of livestock and pastoralists. That will be useful. That's then, I don't know if you have a response on biodiversity question, whether Uganda is among the members who committed to the 30-30. Please, a quick one, then we close.
No, I'm actually not aware if Uganda is committed to 30 by 30 or not. I really appreciate the question and agree very much. I think that the goal, even to your point, having quoted the loss in forested areas in Uganda, I think the goal for these technologies is to support better decision making and more transparency about how the world is changing. So how can we provide policymakers and decision makers with real data about what's going on to advise discussion on policy? That's about all I can offer, right? Is to focus on enabling technology and trying to provide better information to support decision making.
Okay, thank you very much for having attended this session. It's been a long one. I think almost the last two groups you are remaining. The other two presenters didn't make their presentations. Hopefully you will get them in the final conference book when it is ready. And when the full papers are basically submitted to us, then we'll have the conference material available through PDF format. So kindly follow up on the RIC website sometimes later to find out the complete photography, abstracts, as well as full materials. I think this is one of the well-attended thematic areas. Very large number, you're more than, I think, over 50. And thank you very much for being patient and taking part in this particular session. From this juncture, then, I will allow you then to proceed to have your tea and then have a cocktail. So if you don't see the cock, don't take the tail. Okay, but in case you're able to see the cock, please touch the tail. They I think are all being served in the same place, same tea area, so you make your taste. If you are not a cock person, go for the tail. Thank you and enjoy your evening.
As well as astronomy, as well as satellite development. An interesting one is the last one where we are working with one of the startups called Sayari Labs. I saw a representative from them in this forum, and we're hoping that we'll have another satellite launch. The one that I mentioned earlier deorbited in June 2020 after being in orbit for 2 years. And we have one engagement that we're currently undertaking in terms of catalyzing, and this is targeted for the startups. So we have the African Earth Observation Challenge. It's an African challenge. It has a number of players within the ecosystem from South African SANSA, MACSA, Digital Earth Africa is also supporting, among its other stakeholders. But the idea is to try and catalyze and engage the upcoming startups so that we also extend the opportunities. Feel free to visit the website. The website is up there. The deadline for submission is 19th. The areas that we're focusing on is climate change, smart cities, mining, logistics, and agriculture. So if you have an application that you're working on that, visit the website, because there are the number of support systems that will be put in place, including training, that will come to the fore, and we're hoping that we'll have this happening during the Kenya Innovation Week, the pitching of the best institutions. I want to stop there to allow the other presentation to make, but again, thank you for this opportunity at RCMRD, and we hope that we will continue engaging. We don't have all the solutions, and we hope to engage with you to tell us where you would think we want to come in as an agency. Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Hazel Washira from Kenya Airways. I'm an engineer by profession. I'm also the head of training at Fahari Aviation. So I teach people how to fly drones. Okay. I'll just be making a short presentation about Fahari Aviation. I'm sure most of you were the team that attended the demo that we did yesterday are familiar with what we do, but just to go through other things that we do around Fahari Aviation for your consumption. Okay, so Fahari Aviation is a fully owned subsidiary of Kenya Airways Group. So just like you hear Kenya Airways Cargo, you hear about Jumbo Jet, you hear about Training School, all those are small companies within the Kenya Airways Group. And Fahari Aviation was formed in 2020, just when the regulations around drone technology were released by the authority, that's KCAA. And our mandate is to deliver solutions around emerging technologies. Okay, so drone technology is just one of the technologies that we're looking at. We have others that we're also looking at. I'll give a short video at the very end, and you'll be able to see some of the futuristic aviation technologies that we're looking at within Fahari Aviation. But major part of the presentation will be around drone technology. Okay. So in Fahari Aviation, we say the future of living. This is what we say in Fahari Aviation. And the idea is that when we look at emerging technologies, especially, for example, drone technology, when you look at the future, drone technology will be part of every single part of your living. You talk about agriculture, we'll have drones doing crop spraying, we'll have drones doing precision agriculture. You talk about transport, we'll have drones delivering medical supplies, drones doing certain logistics within the transport system. When you talk about communications, there are drones that provide internet connection, and you can name so many industries. So when you look at the future, we see the drone technology integrating with our living. So that's why we say it is the future of living. Okay, so this is just a snapshot of how we started in 2020. I just explained that. As of now, we are already certified as a full KCA approved operations unit, and we are also a training unit. So we provide services around operations and training that I'll talk about in my next slide. We also have a facility that we call a drone cage and a drone club. That the drone cage allows anyone who has a drone and wants to practice or wants to test their drone, then you can come to a facility and you can be able to use it for such purposes. We have a club open to students, open to members who want to join the club and learn more about drone technology or other futuristic technologies, and share ideas with others. The registration is available through our website, so you can visit our website and you'll find more details there. Around enterprise solutions that we offer, we do also offer consultancy for anyone who wants to set up their own organization or wants to train or wants to import a drone or anything drone related. We do offer such services. Looking at 2023 and beyond, we are looking at getting into maintenance, last mile deliveries, US traffic management, and beyond, we are looking at things we call urban air mobility. As I mentioned, I will talk about some futuristic technologies towards the end of my presentation. We are also looking at manufacturing and drone pods, and this will assist in enhancing the benefits of drone technology within the region. So our mission in Fahari Aviation is to transform African communities through sustainable technologies, such as the emerging technologies like drone technology. And I mentioned before, we intend to create the future of living. Okay? We have three main pillars within Fahari Aviation. We have the operations unit, the traffic management unit, which essentially supports our training division and our operations division, and we have the training division. So some of the solutions that we offer around operations, we include services around monitoring and surveillance, aerial mapping and surveying, inspections, agriculture, for those who saw the demo yesterday, conservation, photography and videography, and emergency response. As my colleague mentioned, there are so many varied applications of drone technology, but these are our key focus for fire aviation. Okay? In the near term, we're looking at beyond visual line of sight. This is highly dependent on a traffic management system that the regulator is working on. We're also looking at last mile deliveries. We have technical partners that we are working with to be able to enhance this last mile deliveries. Maintenance and repair services as well for the drones. Distributorship, this is already open. I think we'll make an announcement later, but for anyone who wishes to import a drone, we are a fully approved DJI distributor, so we can be able to assist you in importing and commissioning any DJI drone for private use or for enterprise use. And lastly, urban air mobility. Other services we offer around operations department include data processing and management, looking at the various key service areas and consultancy, as I mentioned. So snapshot of our operations workflow includes capturing data image, which is the first part. I know we've spent a lot of time talking about data capture from various sources. We focus on drone technology, and then we process these images, we scout, we analyze, and then we share in whatever format that the client requires us to share it. Then for our training solutions, they range from initial training, that is your RPL training, all the way to advanced training. So you're looking at remote pilot license for the multi-rotors, the ones that have propellers like this and they hover. Those are the multi-rotors. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks to do that course. And then you have the fixed wing, which takes about 3 to 4 weeks. We also do sensitization training for anyone who wants a team to be sensitized on what these machines are and what they can do, etc. for companies and individuals, and awareness training as well. Moving on to advanced training. Now this advanced training includes flying beyond where you can see, meaning I'm seated here behind a machine and my drone is flying and it's going all the way to Mombasa and it's doing whatever it needs to do, and then it comes back. Now to do that course, you need to get the BVLOS course rating, which is beyond visual line of sight. We do offer this course. However, this has been reserved by the regulator because of they are still working on a traffic management system that will enable them to see where you are. Until that is possible, then that has been reserved. But they've indicated that come January 2023, this will be available. So for anyone who wants to do drone operations commercially, might be the right time to get your RPL so that you have sufficient experience by the time we are open for the BVLOS. Payload courses are around what the drone can do. Remember, drones are just essential tools for data collection or whatever use. So whatever the drone is intended to do is what we call payload course, okay? So it could be a surveillance mission, it could be a mapping mission, it could be aerial photography, yeah? What the drone carries, the payload, is essentially what the mission is tied to the mission, okay? So we do offer such courses. For example, if you want to become a drone pilot, but you want to specialize on mapping, drone pilot, you want to specialize in inspection, so aerial photography, that is still possible. And others include recurrent training, because the training that we offer is a license course. You require to be refreshed every other time. It's not for life. So you come back to school after some time and we refresh you a little bit, tell you what's new on air law, what's new on airspace, what's new in navigation, what's new in radio, and then now we test your proficiency and then we can release you. So we do that, we offer that, and refresher courses and maintaining currency, and also instructors training if you wish to become an instructor, just like myself. Okay, solutions around UAS management. This relates mostly to large drone operators. This could be individual small companies to very big companies. So if you have a fleet of drones or you wish to acquire a fleet of drones, you need a way to manage that fleet. You need a way to manage your personnel, and you need a way to manage your data. So this is a solution that we also offer, because it can get very, very cumbersome to manage all that, especially from an operations point of view. When you have pilots flying all over the place, you require some sort of network that you can be able to manage. So those are services that we offer around UAS management. I will not talk a lot about drones for mapping and surveying, because I think we spoke a little, we spoke quite a lot yesterday, and you also were present during the demo that we did yesterday. But these are some of the drones that we have for mapping and surveying purposes. And these are the capabilities. You can visit the booth and learn more about the payload that each drone carries and the capability that it has. I've just displayed 2 of the drones that we have. Some of the projects that we have engaged in include the first one. That's a proof of concept that we did with KenGen. This was around use of drone technology for inspections of substation and power lines. So we did that in 2021, yeah. And the power companies are looking at exploring the use of this, not only for substation, they're also looking at transmission lines and distribution lines. The one above is one I spoke about yesterday. That's the aircraft inspection project that we're doing with one of our key aircraft stakeholders, that is Boeing Next. Below it is Far Aviation participating in the KWS National Census in 2021, use of drones to assist in counting of animals. The one right below is Sesini, that is use of drones for agriculture, specifically crop spraying, spreading and seeding. The one on the next column, top above, that's a display of our drone cage. Right below is our class, one of our students attending class, and right below is our drone cage facility that I talked about, that is located right within a controlled area. So the benefits of having this drone cage is that as you're flying, you're able to still be within that radio range. So you're able to interact with tower, you're able to interact with the airspace that is near you. So it gives you a very good learning experience. The location is right next to the airport. So it's confined, but within a good area for you to be able to learn. Right below, we're looking at trainees from Kenya Revenue Authority. They're looking at exploring drones for border control and surveillance, and also for asset mobilization for tax returns. So right fixed-wing drone, right below that is an engagement during the all-carrier inspection. Then right below you can see our former president there, also operating one of our drones. He's a very big fan of drone technology. As you can see, this was during the Magical Kenya event. And the one below is it's an artistic impression of our futuristic technology around eVTOLs, which I will talk about in the next slide. Okay, so we are looking at transforming the African trade as one of the biggest stakeholders in air transport. We are looking at how to enhance this in the future. So there's something that we're looking at, the technology around air mobility that we're looking at. So we're imagining that in the future what we'll have, instead of having helicopters moving our politicians or anyone around, yeah, or the rest of us, yeah, we will have such vehicles that we're calling eVTOLs, that will be able to move people from place to place. And that way, aviation and flight will be accessible to everyone. Okay? Just like Just a few years ago, electric cars were only accessible to very few, but now it's becoming a little more common. So we are seeing a future like that. You would be able to take an eVTOL, get into an eVTOL, and go to Kisumu and come back just the way you request for an Uber or you request for a boat. Yeah? So we envision that kind of transport for the future. Yeah, and this will require a lot of engagement from different stakeholders. And it will also require us to set up certain design requirements at this moment into our regulations to be able now to execute that for the future. So I will display a short video that will depict how Nairobi will look like in the future in terms of air mobility and the future of transport. Okay. The eVTOL that we're working with one of our partners called Eve to see that happen in the future for African communities. The intention is to, at this moment, we're part of the working group, and the intention really is to be able to drive our agenda from the root, from the design phase. We are the ones who understand the issues around our African continent. So if we can be able to get those key requirements into the design phase, then we are the ones who are going to benefit the most. So that is the reason why we're putting a big focus on urban air mobility, especially for the African continent. I think I've displayed this Bahari Fleet. Most of you have seen our drones at the booth and during the demo. There are contacts there for anyone who has any questions about what we do and any of the services that we offer, or you have any interest in joining us, you can reach out to us through those contacts. Thank you very much.
I'm in the forestry sector. Similar to how you did a census on wildlife, I wanted to know if you can also carry out an inventory on forest and trees using the drones.
let me get.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'm Okeka. I work with the Wildlife Research and Training Institute, a subsidiary of Kenya Wildlife Service. I think I was present when KQ was demonstrating the use of drone in counting wildlife in circles. Yeah, I know that technology is very expensive. Adoption of technology is very expensive, especially in a third world country like Kenya, which is experiencing very many problems, including shortage of maize and the cost of it. So one of the issues I really want you to probably, together with the Kenya Space Agency and KQ, would be, if you say something on the cost and financing. And number two is there's also the issue of geopolitics in space technology. Which way do we go? Do we go west? Do we go China? Thank you.
Questions that we answer. No, immediately after this.
Okay, I'm from Malawi. We bought several drones for mapping, but we don't have people with licenses. There's a school in Malawi which trains people to have licenses in drone flying, but they only take people who are 25 years and younger. Well, in our mapping section, most of us are very old. So can this be offered to people like us from other countries? Thank you.
These data sets and how these the data sets from that satellites, how can they be accessed and how are they being used? Thank you.
My name is Joseph Bogwa from a survey from Kenya Rural Homes Authority. I'm interested in this drone inspection of the critical infrastructure. We may have problems of structures like bridges, where we need to inspect the underside of it to tell whether there is any deformation and such things for monitoring purposes. How do I go about that? Is it able to pick the photo from the other side of those structures? Thank you.
Now let us have the responses so that we don't mix it with the other presentations. You started? Take it up.
Whether we need to look east or west, I think our mandate requires us to look both sides. It depends on what we want to get and how the cost element. So we're looking at the market forces. So if you need high resolution imagery, like has been presented in other forums, so we look for those providers that are able to provide us that information at a reasonable cost. I also wanted to comment on, there was a question on forest, although it was directed towards the presentation on drones. Again, drones or satellites are essentially platforms. The ultimate is the data that is collected, and we're able to get to, maybe you listen to the other presentation, up to 30 centimeter, 50 centimeter, which allows you to see an individual tree. So still be able to collect that. Of course, drones also are able to provide you that kind of high precision. But again, drones might not be as effective if you want to cover a large geographical area. That's why we need satellite imagery, because you're able to cover a much more extensive area. And again, of course, if you want to go back in time, again, satellite imagery comes in handy. And we're trying to provide that, or to be able to provide that solution, or to support the industry within that particular aspect. I think those were the main questions that were directed to us. Oh, there was a question regarding the data for icons. It was a technology demonstration project. So the camera that was there was a 2 megapixel camera. Again, it was a 10 by 10 by 10 centimeter satellite, so it's not a big one. But usually the technologies in terms of how you're able to take an image up there, send it to the ground station. There is no 3G or 4G up there. So you normally use the rudimentary technology that was using radio frequency signals to send an image. And that takes a bit of time. And again, because the satellite is going round and round the earth, the only window that you normally get is about varies depending 5 to 10 minutes for you to be able to send that data to the ground station. And that window is usually quite small. It deorbited, so it's no longer being used. It was only in orbit for 2 years. And that's why we are looking to have one that has a commercial value that we can use for applications, and more information will come in when we launch. Thank you. Alan.
Thank you. I think we had the majority of questions, so I'll try and take the time allocated. So the first one was drones for counting trees. I think my colleague here from Kenya Space Agency has answered a little bit. But yes, drone satellites are data collection tools. So what matters is really how you process that data. Okay. So if you mount a payload that is able to do the mapping, then you are able to process that data and get the specific asset. It could be trees, it could be buildings, whatever asset it is. So it is possible, obviously within the required scope of work. The second one was about financing. Is there financing around use of drone technology? I would assume this is with regards to organizations, companies. So we are working with funding organizations to see how that is possible, especially for companies that want to explore drone technology for social use, for economic purposes, for government purposes. So we're working with organizations to see this. And if you have any specific need, you can see myself after this meeting, and we can discuss the specific challenges you have around financing. In terms of the costs, we have seen drones providing up to 60% less the cost. But what you normally see is about 40 to 60% in terms of cost effectiveness when you compare to traditional methods. Obviously, this, I'll put a disclaimer, it depends on how you deploy the technology, and it also depends within the boundaries of the scope. So whatever is required also determines the cost of the technology. In terms of training, there's a question on training sponsorship. At the moment, we are not offering any training sponsorship, but we're looking at this for 2023. You were specific for international organizations. So at the moment, Fahari Aviation is able to convert international licenses to Kenyan licenses. So that is what is available. But in terms of sponsorship at this moment, that is not available. There was a question on infrastructure inspection. Are we able to do this? Yes, the drone is able to do infrastructure inspection, and this is just to go through the workflow. This is what happens. As you are taking an image, the images are uploaded onto the software, and the software is integrated with AI technology, such that once the image is uploaded, then you're able to know that there is a defect. For example, if you talk about a pole, you have a defect on a pole, there's corrosion, there's a missing cap, there's that, and all that is captured and it is noted. Okay, so there is implementation of both the data collection part, but also there's a data processing, and then the other technologies in the background. But yes, we are working on a specific project with Kenya Power on the same. They're looking at inspection of power lines using drones. Okay, precision of drones in surveying. Okay, so now drones come in a very special niche when you look at surveying and mapping application. So as my colleague mentioned, if you want to map the whole of the world or you want to map Africa, then you probably go for satellite. But there is a certain niche that you will require, or a drone would actually be more beneficial. You're looking at 3 hectares to about 100 hectares, yeah? That specific niche is where now drone technology complement other data collecting services. Now we're looking at precision. Sometimes precision is too expensive, yeah? Sometimes you do not need that millimeter to make a decision, that millimeter precision, yeah? But drone technology provides high resolution up to the millimeter. So for that specific requirement, then drone technology is useful, okay? So in terms of precision in surveying, that also depends on the data processing that you're going to do after. Remember, drones are just the data collection tool. And then international collaboration, yes, we are open to partnering with universities, partnering with other companies, technical companies, whichever company that is willing to work with us to front this technology. As I mentioned, our mission really is to transform African communities. So we are focused on each community, one by one. It doesn't have to be the whole of Africa, but communities. So if you're part of an organization and wants to work with Fahari Vision, we're very, very open to work and collaborate with you. Okay. And if I haven't answered your question comprehensively, you can see me after.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cecilia R. Ramahatebe Masemola from CSIR, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research in South Africa, head office in Pretoria. But the work that I'm going to present is the work that we did for ICPAC with the ASIPS. I think we have ASIP director here, Dr. Jane. The work is on, we're trying to develop a system for monitoring and predicting rangeland quality, quantity and drought status in Eastern Africa. I just want to acknowledge co-authors. It's me, Moses Shaw, who's my current manager at CSIR, and Dr. Jane and the rest with their company. Okay, this is just an outline. First, the reason why this work is important is because we are growing as a population and we need food. Not only us, but even animals. However, especially in Africa, we know that Africa is prone to drought or climatic consequences. Like drought, for example, in 2015, Southern Africa, we had a severe drought around 2015 and 2016. So therefore, there's a need for at least a system that will be able to help us to prepare. These are the objective, or was the objective of the project. First, we wanted to develop an early warning system based on satellite data. To develop indicators for monitoring and assessing rangeland condition using free available EO data, satellite data. To develop method for forecasting rangeland condition, and to develop a function online model application for assessment, monitoring, and predicting rangeland condition. So I'm going to only present on development of biomass as well as forecasting biomass, because that's the work that I did with Moses Shaw. This is the methodology. We first extracted data, satellite data. We used mainly Google Earth Engine from Google Earth Engine. And then we masked our study area. You can see that it's the eastern part of Eastern Africa. And then we applied our statistical processing, and then after that we sent the data, the product, to the web portal. This is just another methodology, that's a detailed framework we use mainly MODIS, CHIPS data, and also the surface soil moisture, moisture. And then after that, we process the data, we analyze the data, and these are the products. And I'm just going to focus on this, the one within red block, because those products, I'm the one who produced them, and then from there, we send the data to the web portal. First, I'll present the methodology for rangeland condition. So we computed yearly. First, we computed yearly from 2000 to 2020, following the method proposed by Weber 2010. I'll provide a link if you want to maybe go through the paper application. That method compute rangeland condition scores from normalized different vegetation index, NDVI, and using moving standard deviation index, MSDI. So MSDI was computed using moving window of 5 by 5. Because we use MODIS, it was 1.2 meters by 1.2. And the annual condition score was determined following the criteria. Below is the next slide. This is the criteria that we used to actually characterize those conditions. And then this is the product. And you can see that the one, which is red, shows that the rangeland there is transformed or degraded. And then we have 2, which is good condition, untransformed in terms of untransformation. And then we have 3, which is good condition, fresh transformed. And then we have 4, which is good condition, which is fresh and transformed. And then about that methodology, if you want to go maybe to understand the methodology, you can contact me after. And then I'll be able to explain. And then now I'm going to present the methodology we followed for our biomass quantification. We also used the MODIS for this one. First, we used time series also from 2000 to 2021 images. This time we used 250 because you know that MODIS, this is actually the smaller size, pixel size, or maybe the highest resolution from MODIS. And the images, so like I said, we downloaded the images from Google Earth Engine, automatically from Google Earth Engine, using Google Earth Python API. And then we scaled the data after that, and then we used what we call a radiative transfer model. It's called ProCell. ProCell is another type of radiative transfer model that we use. It's the 1D model. So that model, we use it to convert, to actually calculate or estimate a leaf area index. And then after that, the leaf area index was converted into biomass. This is just an outline of the same thing, but I just wanted graphically to show what we did. Like I said, extracted NDVI, and then we used ProCell to estimate leaf area index. And then that is the model that we used. And then after that leaf area index, we used that model and then to come up with biomass. It's the same thing, just explaining that workflow or flow diagram. And then after that, our another objective, it was to actually produce forecasting or to forecast biomass, dry as well as fresh biomass. Maybe you're asking yourself, what is fresh biomass and dry biomass, or how did we actually produce those products, fresh and dry biomass? fresh biomass, we just used NDVI that was collected, or image that was collected during peak productivity. And dry biomass was collected during dry season, wet season and dry season. So for forecasting data, we followed the same, but we used rainfall data. We first developed forecast NDVI. So we forecast NDVI using forecast rainfall data. And then after that NDVI, we followed the same procedure where we used a ProCell or radiative transfer model to actually come up with the leaf area index. And then after leaf area index, and then we used the same model that I demonstrated previously to come up with biomass. This is just an explanation on how we came up with that model, the forecast model. And this is the model that we used to actually the outcome of that procedure when we come up with forecast model to estimate the NDVI. This is just to explain that the rainfall data that we used, forecast rainfall data, was from ICPEC. If you go to ICPEC website, you're able to retrieve their estimated or forecast rainfall data. So we used that rainfall data to come up with NDVI, and after that we converted NDVI to leaf area index to biomass. And this one is just to show you the accuracy of that NDVI. This is actually NDVI for March 2020, and that one is the NDVI that we produced using a forecast model. You can see R squared is 0.82, and normalized root mean square error is 0.23. So the model actually was accurate. And this is just a flow diagram, the same one, but this one is for forecast, just to show that instead of using a real NDVI from Google Earth Engine, we used NDVI from, the one that we predicted using forecast rainfall. And this is the product, forecast product that we produced. It was March 2021, April, and then this is I think this is January, February, and then March, April, actually the date there. So, okay, it's January, February, March, and April. So this is the predicted, actually, biomass. And the accuracy between predicted, because we also used actual after actual NDVI, and the accuracy was also above 0.8 R squared. And all this data was sent to the portal. This is just the front end of the portal that was developed by one of our colleagues. So all the data then was sent to this portal, and this is just the front end of the portal. I don't have a URL. If you go to ICPEC, you'll be able to access, to go to this portal. And then we have data, and yeah, even biomass data is there. The conclusion is that the tool makes it possible to monitor range of condition, also by looking at other indicators. If you go to the URL, and then you'll be able to see other indicators. And the data shown in the ranger tool can help users to monitor drought ranger condition, as well as to show early warning or to warn, especially forecast data. And like I said, this product we produced using or developed using MODIS. We currently actually using Sentinel because that Sentinel has a higher spatial resolution compared to MODIS, and also the accuracy will increase as compared to MODIS. Thank you. That's the end.